Hello, everyone. So great, Hannah. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I'm so excited to dive in. We have so many similarities with your business called the School Yoga Project. Obviously, we're on the same page. So, to get started, I'd love to hear about you on your website. You talk about this journey you went through to go from the classroom teacher to starting your own school yoga project. Can you
Mhm.
talk us through that briefly and sort of what do you what made you make that switch and what are you bringing with you and what are you using in the project?
Yeah, so I was going through a bereavement myself, and I moved to a different country and started teaching. I was already a teacher, but I started teaching in the schools there, and I was really struggling. So I was looking to find a support network. So I started yoga as a hobby, and I actually realized it released a lot of emotions that I was holding on to. So I was like, wow, this is a really powerful tool rather than a hobby. It's something that I think I should be doing every day. So I started doing breath work, meditation, all the yoga postures. Um, and I was trying out different styles of yoga. And then I started incorporating it just with the children that I was working with. I had quite a lively bunch of 5 year olds, and I thought I need to calm them down somehow. So I started just one day, I thought, oh, I'll try this breathing technique with them. And then it started to slowly help day by day. We added it in little habits, just tiny little things each day. And then I saw a kids yoga course come up, so I did that. And then I did my full yoga teacher training. And then I was still teaching and incorporating yoga into their PE curriculum, and I started expanding it into the other classes in the school. And I just thought, this is magic. This is what everyone should learn. You know, I had high anxiety growing up. If I'd have had this tool when I was 5 and I was doing it every day, like brushing your teeth and meditating or doing some breath work when I felt anxious, I would have had such a calmer childhood. And I just thought, wow, yeah, I need to go and do this in other schools. So that's when I took the leap after a few years of doing it in the school I was in.
I love this story. And we're in parallel, Hannah. I love it so
Mhm.
much because with the way you're describing it, it's something that you found yourself first,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
and so once you have that experience, it is like that. You think, oh my goodness, everybody should feel this way, right? And
Yeah.
especially our young people. And so I love that you then took that curiosity a step further and did your own training and just
Mhm.
tried it. I think that
Yeah.
it's such a big step where people think, okay, this is all lovely and great, but how? How do I implement it? And you showed us it's exactly it. You just have to get going and give it a try, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
So
definitely.
this we're in this kind of unique time, right? We don't have to talk about that, but we know there's a lot of anxiety and stress and overwhelm. So why do you believe that yoga and breathwork and story time are such effective tools now more than ever in terms of regulation and reconnecting them to their own mind and bodies?
Yeah, I just think children's days are so fast paced. There's so much involved.
Mhm.
They're going from school to an activity or screen time. Screen time's so high at the minute, and we've had COVID and everything. So emotions are quite high, and I think we just need to bring it back to basics. Like you've got your breath, that's your tool. That's your. Sometimes I say to the children, this is your superpower. You've got it everywhere you go. You don't need to take anything with you. You've got it within you. Um, so I think like breath work in particular moves you from that fight and flight into that rest and digest mode. The movement brings body awareness, and the storytelling is really about understanding your emotions and not fighting them, but you know, different ways of coping with them. So I teach different breathing techniques for different emotions, and I think that really helps clarify in the mind. This is what I'm feeling. You need to identify it first. Okay, what can I do to help myself? What have I learned, and what have I got in me?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you've spoken about yoga postures and breath work and storytelling. Can you speak more to take us through what it's like in schools? If a school is saying, okay, great, now how do I bring this to our
Yeah.
classrooms? Can you give us sort of your three top tips of how schools can get started to implement? these practices?
Yeah, I think just little and often, like I started with. It doesn't have to be a full hour's yoga class. People think, oh no, I have to fit this other session in. And teachers are
Mhm.
already, stressed trying to fit everything in a school day. I think it just needs to be little habits, like you would like, okay, everyone take a toilet break, everyone take a water break. It's okay, everyone, let's take a breathing break when they come in after lunch. Let's just do 3 minutes of a breathing exercise, or let's do a guided meditation. Or if it's the end of the day, I used to, let everyone lay down on the carpet and have, even if it's just a 2-minute relax before they leave,
Mm.
just little snippets in the school day. Um, and it also starts with staff. So I've noticed that if I'm in a school and I've taught a lunchtime session to staff or after school session to staff, like I said about myself, once they understand it and feel the benefits, then they're more likely to naturally want to incorporate that into their sessions as well,
Yeah.
into their
All right.
school
So
day.
you've got starting sort of little but often, right? Little
Yeah,
micro moments throughout the
yeah,
day so that it
yeah,
weaves naturally into school day and it's not adding anything more to your plate, right?
yeah,
And the second thing you're
definitely.
talking about, starting with the teachers, the educators, the pediatric therapists, the administration, and whether you're coming in on a professional development day or, you're
Mhm.
helping, you're doing a side session with some of the educators who are interested, or maybe I know that you go in. So if they're there, they can be seeing how you're doing it, right?
Yeah,
Is there any
exactly.
other tips you have?
Yeah, so a lot of the head teachers in schools will say, "Oh, can my staff come and watch you teach your session and write some notes?" And that's exactly how they learn, just by watching. And they might not do it exactly how I do it, but
Right.
it gives them confidence to be able to then teach it. Because I know a lot of staff might be like, "Well, I've never done yoga. How do I teach this?" Um, you could even start with recordings. So, there's lots
Mm,
online where you could just play a guided meditation instead of thinking, oh, I've got to plan another lesson. There's lots of
yeah.
online you can use as well.
Yeah, so I love that as a third tip, right? Is this co-teaching or modeling. So if you don't have confidence yet, either play a video or have someone like yourself, a children's yoga teacher, come in for a
Mhm.
certain amount of time. And once you get the kind of momentum, once the children get what's going on, even if it's 15 minutes a week, then if you continue that thread throughout the week, because you can just be using those same practices, right, over and over again. So I imagine once you're going in, you're encouraging the teachers to carry on with those activities to reinforce them, right? So that's a
Yeah.
great way. So little and often, start with the staff, having them have experience, and then find experiences that are co-teaching or modeling. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
definitely. And I think things
Yeah.
can
Mhm.
be repeated. You don't have to think, oh, I need to think of a new breathing technique this week. Just do the ones that
Right.
work with your children. All children gravitate to different ones, and you'll know with your children which ones they like, which ones they don't like. And so
Mm.
just repeating those, because the more you repeat it, the more it becomes a habit. If it's different every time, then the children also get a bit lost, like, oh, what are we doing today? If it's something that they're used to, they'll just automatically switch off and calm down. I always feel the first time I learn anything, I'm not properly rest and digest mode, because I'm still switched on thinking, oh, what's coming next? But if it's the same
Mm.
breathing technique I've done before, then I think, yeah, my brain automatically thinks, oh, I know what's coming next. I know this is a 2-minute breath work and this is how it's going to go.
Yeah, right. And I imagine you've got some visuals, right? You've got some
Mhm.
props or things that you're bringing in to introduce to the children too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got to also target the visual and kinesthetic learners. So sometimes pass around a Hoberman ball, a sphere, and they like opening and closing those to help them. And if you've got a big class and you don't have all the resources, you could just pass it around so everyone gets a turn, or give it to the children that will really need that, and then visuals for other learners. So yeah, I think just start small, maybe have, I don't know, a YouTube video on for the visual learners, or some nice pattern if it's music. It doesn't have to be difficult. I think just find the tools that work for you and then repeat them.
Yeah. And it follows that sort of mindfulness practice, right? About first noticing, right? So thinking about who's your population and what are the challenges that your students are having, and then getting curious, just what you did. You were sort of, I'm just going to
Mhm.
try this out. I'm just going to try these breaths or this yoga story time and see what the children are interested in. And then the
Mhm.
curiosity will naturally lead you to want to know more, right? And so what you did, you took a yoga teacher training, or you search online for lots of different resources that you could use or props that you can buy. So I think it's just as important for teachers, for educators to give themselves permission to have fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Because the children are going to feed off your enthusiasm. So if
Yeah.
you're there with your home and sphere and you think it's super cool and it's fun, they're going to feed off that, I imagine, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think also the way you teach it as well. And this is why I like to help staff build their confidence, because when they feel confident, then the children will feel confident in doing it as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. We're so hard on ourselves that
Mhm.
as educators, we think, oh, we can't do it unless it's perfect. Or
Yeah.
I'll do that when, eh, after the holidays or after the break or whatever. And I
Yeah.
think what you're really pushing forward here is that reminder that start with yourself and just start small and keep it simple. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Doesn't have to totally change your curriculum. Doesn't have to add more to your plate. But when
No.
you have the benefits yourself,
Mhm.
because I was thinking about it a couple years ago when I was sub teaching, I was also going through a grief journey as well. And was really struggling, as you had it, when it is
Mhm.
so hard to be in a classroom when you have a huge life event happening outside.
Yeah.
It would be great if we compartmentalize it, and we kind of have to in a way. But you have those, like, every break you take, you just have like a big
Mhm.
grief release in the bathroom. It's a lot. And
Mhm.
so when you have these practices to come back to, you've got your breath work, have some movement if you just want to get unstuck. So if you're doing it for yourself,
Yeah.
then it just becomes natural with the children. And you
Yeah.
could just tell them, like, I just, it's a little chaotic, or it's a little something, or, it's a little colder today, or it's a little whatever, or,
Mm.
it's a holiday. So it's a little bit, there's energy high. And then, we just model it for our students, and then they can just join in when and how they would like. It doesn't have to be so prescriptive, does it? Like, okay,
No,
this is yoga time right now, right? It can be just a natural part
just
of
as
the
and
school
when. And
day.
if you're the teacher and you're getting stressed and you think, oh, I just need a couple of minutes, but I can't leave the classroom. Well, then
Yeah,
put it on for yourself and then let the children join in. That gives
right.
yourself a couple of minutes breathing time just to emotionally regulate yourself, and then you can help others. So, yeah,
Yes,
it can work
right.
both ways.
And the same with, I think we talk about yoga storytelling too, right? Because that's another question we get a lot. Like,
Mm.
how do we do this yoga storytelling? Because it looks different in terms of it's generally movement or mindfulness. And there's lots of videos out there as well, right? That you can just be playing and watching. And then once you've seen somebody talk through or teach through a yoga story, then the
Yeah.
next time you can have the story yourself, and then you could teach it from there. But we don't
Mhm.
have to have it all figured out, do we? It's just taking baby steps forward.
Yeah, definitely. Just one
Yeah,
thing at a time.
right. So we love stories here, obviously. So tell us sort of a most surprising or most rewarding story that you've had in the classroom with teaching yoga.
Um, I most recently had a group of teen girls, and this was quite new for me because I've been used to teaching in primary schools, so I wasn't sure how it would be received. And they were all quite reserved, quite anxious, and they didn't give much away. They were participating and doing everything, but not really, saying, "Oh, I've done this at home" or whatever. And then it got to the end of a 6-week program, and they all just turned around and said, "Oh, is that it finished?" And I said, "Yeah." And then one girl said, "Well, I don't want it to finish." She said, "My confidence has grown so much." And that really surprised me because I didn't realize at the time. And I said, "Why? What have you been doing, Shidwell, in the morning?" I used to come to school and cry every morning when I came to school. I had
Mm.
to go to the pastoral office. I couldn't go to my class. And she said, for the last couple of weeks, I've just been doing my affirmations in the morning, telling myself I can do this and my breathing. And then I've been coming into school with a smile on my face, and I just don't want it to stop. And so I was so take, taken aback, like that's amazing. But also I was really shocked because sometimes when you
Mhm.
think children maybe aren't listening, or you think you're guessing what they're thinking, but in my head I was thinking, oh, they think this is boring, and going away thinking, oh, I'm not really making a difference. And then actually you are. So it was really surprising. Sometimes you've got to not tell yourself stories in your head of what the children are thinking, because you never know what difference you're making, even when you
Yeah.
think you're not. Yeah.
Ah, such a beautiful story. I love that so much because I think what you're speaking to teens, as I have a teen,
Mm.
and that's it. You don't know. And isn't it always the case the children or the young people who you aren't making a difference through, you aren't getting through to, are always the ones at the
Yeah.
end who are the most surprising. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. The ripple effect is there. I can imagine you in that moment. You just their heart must have been bursting. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that so
No, it
much.
just makes me think, when I see other teachers and I think, oh, they're not really engaged in it. I said, you just wait, just do a few weeks of it, and something will come out. Trust me. Even the ones that
Yeah,
you think in the back are not sure about it, I
yeah.
think you definitely make a difference.
Oh, I love that. So now, speaking of the educators, what have you learned on this journey of going into schools?
Mm.
How are you sort of helping them to gain confidence, or what do you, what kind of information are you
I
getting
think
from the
teachers
educators?
yeah, teachers have a lot on their plate, and then being a teacher
Mm,
myself, I think it's even more fast paced nowadays since I was teaching even a few years ago. And just, I think children are the problem teachers are facing, or educators are facing, is that children live in such a fast paced world, watching YouTube, or I don't
mm,
know, going on an iPad or a screen. It's so fast paced that when they're sat in the classroom, that's kind of boring them because they're not being stimulated constantly. So I think teachers are facing a really hard battle just teaching anything at the moment, and having to constantly think of new ways and fitting in everything. But the way that I support them is through just helping themselves. So doing some yoga themselves. They don't, even if they think, oh, I don't want to do the postures. Just do some breathing, some
mm,
relaxation. So I help them like through lunchtime sessions, after school sessions, CPD. So them watching me, or sometimes I go in schools and do workshops. So I think definitely building their confidence and
mm,
showing that it's just, as we spoke about before, it's just little snippets. You don't have to do
mm,
a full 45 minutes to an hour like what you see me do. Just do one breathing technique.
mm.
It's still going to have an effect. Just do one little thing and do it consistently over time, and you will see a difference and see it translate into the classroom. So I try and build educators' confidence in seeing that doing this will help them in their other lessons. So it will improve concentration. It will, improve disruptions. It will just help emotionally regulate the children so that they can be more switched on and focused for the rest of their learning. So why not do it?
Right. I love that because, what teacher, if you went to them and said, oh, I've got a little wee practice that only takes a couple minutes or, a few seconds that could help children focus, that could calm their mind and bodies and help them ready to learn. I don't know any teacher that would say, no, no, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in the UK. Obviously, I think you're in the north part of England. What are
Yeah.
you seeing with your community? Are you seeing any pushback to the practices that you're bringing, or is everyone really on board, or what's
Um,
the state right
the
now?
schools that I go into are really on board, but it sometimes takes a while to build up that rapport and for them to see the benefits. I think until schools see the benefits, they sometimes just see yoga on an email that I might have sent and just think, we already do yoga. We don't need any help. And what I'm trying to get in is that it's more about the emotional regulation than
Mm,
just doing some yoga postures. Yes,
Oh,
we
you're
can go
right.
in and do the yoga postures, which is great for our physical health, but also what about the mental health side? And that's what the pushback I get sometimes is, well, we already do yoga in PE. And I think, yeah, but if you just come in and let me show you for 6 weeks, I promise you'll see the benefits, rather than doing a 1 hour PE yoga session a week. I think it's just showing them what works and how to fit it in. So I think it's A, time in schools. So the pushback is we don't have enough time for this, or B, we already do this. We've got our own way of doing it. But then once I'm in schools and they're on board, then they'll book in time and time again, once they've seen the
Yes.
rewards.
Right. Can you talk us through a little snippet of like, are you going in for 15 minutes at a time, for example?
At schools, yeah,
Yeah.
I go in and do all sorts. So if I was doing an emotional regulation small group, I would go in and do, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes breath work. So that might just be that. But if I was doing a full 45 minutes, then I do a little bit of everything. So I do
Yeah.
different breathing techniques for different emotions. Then we might do, it depends on the children, but we might do a few sun salutations just to get some energy out. And then we'll look at maybe different postures for different things like, balances like tree pose help focus and concentration. So we might focus on that. Different themes each week. So another theme, then we might go on to positive affirmations, how they help rewire our brain from negative to positive thinking, meditations. Um, so in meditations, I'll try and speak to the children. Sometimes they have the thought that, well, when I'm meditating, I shouldn't think anything. And I'm trying to say to them,
Mm.
no, it's fine. You are going to have thoughts, but try not to focus on one thought. So just let that thought come and then let it go. And the more you meditate, the quieter your mind will get. So we talk about that. And then one of the main things that they love is the guided relaxations. So
Mm.
showing them how they can relax their body, squeeze and release, and then just telling them a story. And they just love to lay down and listen and
Mm.
just let their body rest, because when else do they have that time in the school day just to lay down and be
Right.
with their thoughts? Yeah.
Yes. And what I'm
So
hearing from you too, it's also just as important how you're presenting yourself, right? Like you yourself, or you could tell you've done the practices, you're enthusiastic, you're excited about the work, and I'm sure that that is a large part of what you're doing.
yeah, definitely. And I try and bring that across to the educators that I work with as well.
Mhm.
Well, they know from teaching that the more enthusiastic, the more calm, the more you embody what you're teaching, the more the children will take it on board. Whereas if you're talking and you're not really talking with conviction, you're just saying that this is something you can do, then I don't think it's going to work. I think you have to show and be an example of how it's beneficial to them.
Yeah. And do you use evaluation? Because you were talking about how, with anything with education in schools, we want to make sure it fits the educational standards, or that, we're seeing increases in the behaviors or decreases of, reports to the principal, whatever it is. But do you offer the kind of entry exit or evaluate in any way?
Yeah, so I give feedback forms to all the teachers, and also the children do their own online questionnaires. So I get feedback from the
Cool.
children and the teachers, and I love it. Some of the children's comments are like, "Yoga is the best. I've learned to not stop being angry, but what was it? To control my anger or something like
Oh,
that."
that's amazing.
Yeah, the teachers are just saying, it's helped them whole class just be able to calm down when they need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get all sorts of lovely comments back, and then also some, tweaks, such as sometimes I've been going in 45 minutes, and they might say, oh, actually, that group really could just do with 15 minutes, so they don't miss too much of their learning time, because I do go in
Yes.
school time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your generosity. So, if you have any other parting words, that'd be amazing. And then let us know how we find you online and how do we
Yeah.
connect you and what's sort of next for you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I would just say let's try and incorporate yoga, breathwork, mindfulness into the education system. I just think that would be the ultimate goal. Just seeing the importance as much as learning the academics. You know,
Mhm.
you need, I'm still learning to emotionally regulate myself, but I just think, if you learn it as a habit from when you were younger, then it'd just be amazing for everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, you can find me on my website, www.theschoolyogaproject.co.uk, or you can email me at theschoolyogaproject@gmail.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Hannah. I so appreciate you. It's so lovely to speak to you across the pond, and yet we have exactly the same, passion and dedication to this work. So I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Thanks, Hannah.